What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to sort of just touch base on the current state of Cold War's multiplayer. Now that we've got our Season 1 updates, and the game's been out for a little over a month at this point, I just wanted to touch base and talk about the current state of the game, as well as continue to bring up some feedback that I have that I feel would help improve this game. Because honestly, I'm still of the opinion that the foundation of this game is great. I really enjoy the core gameplay with Black Ops Cold War. I just feel that the game still has a good handful of issues that are really holding it back. So I just want to provide my feedback here. Some of this is stuff that I've already said in the past. I am going to be repeating myself because it's issues that still exist and I would still like to be looked at. But as I was going through this, I was really trying to focus on things that I feel could be reasonably adjusted in some way. I'm not asking for a full-on overhaul or anything. Even with things that I don't like, I understand that some things just aren't going to be changing, at least not that much. So I'm trying to keep my feedback at least somewhat reasonable here. So let's hop right into it, and we're gonna start it off with the big one, matchmaking. Now, for those that missed it, Drifter, J-God, Sour, and I did a big study on matchmaking to try to figure out at least the basics of how it works. And yes, it is a skill-based matchmaking system or performance-based matchmaking system that does appear to be pretty similar to what we saw in Modern Warfare. And this was one of my biggest complaints last year, and I beat this horse to death all year last year, talking about the skill-based matchmaking system to the point where I lost a bunch of subscribers because I was being too negative about it. So as good as I would look to the community, and as much as I would love for this to happen, me demanding that they completely eliminate this skill-based matchmaking system and go back to whatever they had before Modern Warfare, that's simply not going to do anything. Didn't do anything last year, it's not going to do anything this year. Instead, I wanted to focus on a few key issues with skill-based matchmaking that I do feel could be reasonably looked at and potentially adjusted. And the first one here is I would like the devs to take another look to make sure that ping is actually king in the game. Based on our results from that skill-based matchmaking study, we did see a trend that showed that the higher skill account that you're playing on, the better chance you have of getting a higher ping lobby. Now, just to reiterate here, we didn't have a massive sample size on that particular aspect of it, and therefore this is just a trend that we noticed. But it's a very scary trend, and this is unacceptable. Prioritizing skill over connection in regular public matches, not a ranked playlist, but regular public matches, is completely unacceptable. I've been monitoring my connections a lot lately, and what I found is I am always playing on a dedicated server. 100% of the time, I'm on a dedicated server, so why am I not always connecting to the best possible server to me? When I play on my main account, sometimes my ping is about 45 to 50 milliseconds, which is a solid ping. That's as good as it gets for me, and I'm perfectly happy with that. However, especially lately, more than half my games have a ping of about 90 to 100 milliseconds. And this is while playing solo, so it's not like this is being skewed by me playing with somebody that's kind of far away. I'm searching solo here. Why is this happening? This should be a very rare occurrence. I should be connecting to those servers where I get a 45 to 50 millisecond ping almost every single game. Not less than half of the time. So that's the first and probably the biggest part of this matchmaking system that I really would like to see addressed. The next thing is something that I absolutely hated with their matchmaking system in Modern Warfare, and I hate it just as much in Cold War. This is the fact that lobbies are disbanding after almost every game. Sometimes, yes, it will stick together, but for me at least, it's very rare that I will play in the same lobby 2 games in a row. And I don't want to get into too much detail because I've said all this before, but I feel like this takes a huge part of the heart and soul away from the Call of Duty experience. And on top of this, it's just really frustrating that you can't develop those rivalries over multiple games. You can't learn how your enemies are playing and adapt over multiple games to your enemies so that you can find success. Additionally, that ping issue wouldn't be nearly as bad if I could at least stay in the same lobby once I finally get a lobby that has a good ping for me. Instead, it seems like I get that really good connection lobby every once in a while, but then it kicks me out and throws me into a bad ping lobby, and I had absolutely no control over that. So this is one of those things where I feel it would be a fair compromise. I'm not asking you to completely wipe out the skill-based matchmaking system you're using, but it would be a lot more tolerable if we could at least stay in the same lobby game after game, and if we don't like the lobby, or if the people we're playing against don't like that lobby, they can leave whenever they want and search for a new one. I just hate the fact that they've taken away so much player choice with this system. So that's as much as I'm going to get into the skill-based matchmaking system with this particular video. I just don't want to make this whole video about skill-based matchmaking, but those are the 2 key factors that I would love to see adjusted, and I do feel could be reasonably adjusted as well. I'm not asking for a full overhaul here, I'm just asking for some improvements in some key areas. But now let's move outside of matchmaking and talk about some other issues that I have with this game currently. And these are going to be in no particular order here. One really nice quality of life thing that I would love to see, and I'm sure they've probably already got planned on the back end somewhere, but I'm still going to ask for it. It would be great to have an option to save our custom blueprints. When we make that perfect attachment combination, we should be able to save that so that we can quickly access it in our class setups. As we're making a new class setup, we can just sort of import our perfect build into that class setup without having to go through all the attachments. This was a really nice quality of life feature in Modern Warfare, and I'm really missing it this time around with Cold War. Additionally, another little quality of life thing that I would love to see that worked just fine in Modern Warfare but doesn't in Cold War, I would really like to see a grace period when you change your classes in-game. If you edit your class, there should be a grace period after you spawn. As long as you haven't shot your gun or anything, you should have like 5 or 10 seconds to make any sort of adjustments to your class setup, and then they will apply in real time, so you don't have to get yourself killed again before those changes apply. This is just one of those really minor annoyances that I have with this game. It's not like this is affecting me all the time and it's totally game breaking, but it would be a great quality of life feature to have. Next up, ranked play or league play. At this point, we still don't have a completely official confirmation. There are some references to league play within the menus and stuff of the game, and the devs have really heavily hinted at some sort of a ranked playlist coming, but nothing has been officially confirmed, and we have no idea when we can expect to see this. So I'm really hoping that we will see this at some point throughout Season 1, or at the very least, some sort of confirmation and maybe an expected timeline. That would be awesome to see. But moving on to the next thing, kind of a random order here, but I would like to see an adjustment to how their spawn protection system is working. My biggest issue at the moment is the lack of feedback on players that currently have that spawn protection active. And just to be clear, the spawn protection does only work against score streaks, but this does apply to things like a war machine as well. And this can be a really jarring and confusing experience when you shoot a war machine directly at an enemy player, it blows up, and you don't even get a hit marker on them. At least in previous CODs, when there was spawn protection, you would get hit markers. You would be dealing almost no damage to that enemy player, but you'd get a little bit of feedback that would at least show you that is an enemy player, you are hitting them, and then preferably, it would be great to have a different style of hit marker that gives you an indicator that shows this player currently has spawn protection active. Now, like I said, the primary frustration here is using the war machine because it's actually in your hands and you're in immediate danger because you're fighting against that enemy player or about to be fighting against them. But this also applies to things like the chopper gunner. I feel like it really holds back the chopper gunner because you don't get that feedback on where the enemy players are. You might be seeing an enemy player running out in the open and you're lighting them up with your chopper gunner, but since you don't get any feedback on that, you get no hit markers, then you must be thinking, well, that's got to be one of my teammates because I'm not getting hit markers, so maybe the spawn flipped and now they're spawning somewhere else, and it's just really confusing and it makes no sense, and then you realize that was an enemy player, they just had spawn protection. So again, this is another one of those fairly minor things. It's not a game-breaking issue right now, but it's something that I feel could very reasonably be improved in some way, and I would like to see an improvement here. Next up, I want to talk a little bit about the Scorestreak system. Now, this is a system that I have never liked, and I have expressed what I feel the issues are going to be with the Scorestreak system from the beginning. And I think a lot of people are really starting to see the inherent flaws with this current Scorestreak system. One of the big sources of frustration that's been coming out a lot lately is people looking at the scoreboard at the end of the game and realizing that it's not actually an indication of how much of an effort you put forward in that game or how much you actually contributed to the win for your team. The reason for this is since we get such massive bonuses for going on longer kill streaks when it comes to our score, when you see the ranking on the leaderboard at the end of the game, the person on the top is usually just the person that went on the highest kill streak, regardless of how much they actually helped the team win the game. They could have stayed completely away from the objective. They might not even have very many kills, but if they just didn't die at all, then they're going to be getting a ton of score and they'll be on the top of the leaderboard. And that's a really frustrating feeling when you have been working so hard. Maybe you didn't go on any massive streaks, but you worked really hard, got lots of kills, played the objective super well, held that map control effectively, and yet you don't really feel rewarded for that because you're not on the top of the leaderboard. And that's just one of the many inherent flaws with this Scorestreak system, but it is something I've been noticing a lot lately. People are getting frustrated with this. Now, like I said, this video is about reasonable things to ask for, and I don't think it's reasonable at this point to ask them to completely scrap their score streak system and just go with the old school score streak system from like Black Ops 2, for instance. Would I love for that to happen? Absolutely. I think that would be amazing. But at this point, that's just not reasonable. Instead, I have a couple options that I feel could be a happy middle ground here. Maybe introduce a perk that will allow us to use the traditional score streak system, kind of like what we had last year with Modern Warfare, where it was kill streaks, but you could use point man to get score streaks. Why not give us a tier 2 perk, so it's not really competing against anything too strong, that allows us to have the traditional Black Ops 2 score streak system if we would like. I think this would be a great compromise for those players that prefer that traditional score streak system and whose playstyle is better suited to that. That playstyle would be for people that are a bit more aggressive on the objectives, while still being able to string kills together at the same time as playing the objective. They would have that potential to earn higher streaks faster, but they would have to do it all in one life. I think that would be a totally fair trade-off, especially if it were a tier 2 perk, so you're not sacrificing too much. If it were a tier 3 perk, it would be completely useless because the other perks are just more necessary. But yeah, that's one potential solution for the people that really don't like this score streak system. Another thing that I think would at least be cool to see is at some point in the future, maybe give us a limited time mode that has the traditional score streak system by default for everyone. So you could just start it off as a mosh pit playlist, and everything else works exactly the same as normal. It's just the score streak system would be the traditional system. I'd be really interested to see how popular that particular mode would be. And also, I would love to see how this game plays with a traditional score streak system, because I think it would be awesome. So yeah, just a couple suggestions that I feel are relatively reasonable for the score streak system. And now let's get into one last big issue that I still have with this game, and I've had since the beginning with this game, and this is visibility. Now, I'll admit, with the Season 1 update, we have more character models that tend to be a bit on the bright side and stuff, and that has made things a little bit better in some situations when you happen to run into a player that's using one of these bright colored skins. But I still find the visibility to be pretty bad in this game. Player models are just too flat against the background. I don't know exactly what the cause of this is. I don't know if it's just that the textures in the environment are too complex and therefore the character models are blending into them too well, or if it's maybe like a depth of field issue or something, but I'm still just running into so many issues where I'm being shot from somebody that my eyes just cannot recognize on the screen. Even though they're standing right there in front of me, it takes way too long for me to recognize, hey, that's an enemy character. And this is an issue that I can't ever remember dealing with in Call of Duty. In all my years of Call of Duty, I've been playing since COD 2, I can't recall ever experiencing this, at least not to this degree. So I am still holding out some hope that this is something that they could potentially revisit and take a deeper look at and maybe find some better solutions for just making the character models pop a little bit better against the environment. Because the overall gameplay style of this game is a fast-paced arcade-style shooter. And having enemies that just blend in with the background even though they're standing right in front of you, it doesn't fit with this gameplay style at all. And it's just a really frustrating issue to be running into. But with that pretty much covers it for a lot of the bigger picture issues that I still have with this game that I would love to see addressed. Again, just want to reiterate, because anytime I make a feedback video, people say, stop being a hater and everything, or if you hate the game so much, why do you keep playing it? I don't hate the game. I'm actually enjoying myself with it a good amount. But I do feel like it is being held back in certain areas, and there is some excellent room for improvement with a handful of changes. And with that, I'd like to know in the comments section below, what are your thoughts on the current state of Cold War's multiplayer, and what sort of reasonable feedback do you have, or reasonable changes would you like to see with this game? Just let me know all of those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.